Today's video is about one of those topics that just can't be ignored anymore because it's breaking the market for all of us. Too many artists are still working for free, and now, on top of that, we're up against AI-generated slop flooding the internet, conventions, and even bookstores. It's one thing to fight for fair pay. It's another to have to justify your very existence as an artist because someone with a keyboard thinks typing a few prompts equals art. Before I dive in though, you know the drill. If you enjoy this kind of content, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and if you want to support my work directly, go ahead and check out my Patreon. My patrons get exclusive behind-the-scenes content, sneak peeks of works in progress, and even free merch as part of their subscription. Patreon is what makes it possible for me to keep creating videos like this. So, yeah, your support really does matter. Also, I do apologize for my voice. At this point, I'm even happy to be able to speak again, but I still sound a little wonky, so bear with me. Alright, with all that out of the way, welcome back to another Butcher Shop. So let's start with the big piece of drama that shook a lot of us, the Dragon Con situation. If you missed it, I wonder where you've been for the last couple of weeks. But in any case, here's the short version. An AI artist, or quote-unquote artist, set up a booth selling AI-generated images, and he first started passing them off as his own work. Then later on, he came with a story that he was some sort of gallery owner. There are various versions of this story. But the core business is that Dragon Con actually kicked him out once it became obvious what was going on. Now, if you want to deep dive into this mess, I highly recommend checking out those videos by Inkwell and Sam Does Art. They did excellent breakdowns of everything that happened, the community's reaction, and why this moment matters. Let me tell you though why it hit so hard for me personally. Because this was the first time I really saw a major event take a stand and say, no, this is not okay, this is not art. Because for most part, conventions have been slow and reluctant or downright unwilling to tackle the AI problem. And you know what, part of me gets it because organizers have enough on their plate. But if we don't draw the line somewhere, that line will vanish completely. So think about it, what it means when someone sits behind a table and smiling, but they're also selling AI images they typed into a machine. They didn't study anatomy. They didn't spend years mastering color theory or working with light or learning how to build textures. They didn't go through any of that trial and error growth that every artist knows so well. So they don't know the frustration of redoing something 5 times or 6 times over and over until it finally clicks. He typed a sentence, hit enter, and boom, there's a portfolio. Dragon Con's decision to remove that booth wasn't just about one person breaking the rules. It was about sending a message to everyone. This kind of cheating has no place here. And honestly, good. It's about damn time. Because if events don't protect the value of art, who will? So here's where I stand. I want to be crystal clear, first of all, that I am not anti-technology. I am not anti-AI in general. There's absolutely places where AI is useful, valuable, and perhaps even life-saving. Medicine, sure. Data analysis, well, absolutely. But use AI to scan thousands of lab reports, detect patterns that humans might miss, save lives. Great, I'm all for it. But when it comes to art, no. Full stop. There is no place for AI in the world of art, in my opinion. Art isn't about the end result on paper or screen. Art is about the process. It's about sitting down, opening your sketchbook, and pouring hours of your life into an idea. It's about watching your skills grow and your hand become steadier, your eyes sharper. It's about the energy you pour into shaping something that literally wouldn't exist without you. When people bypass that process by typing in a prompt, they don't understand the meaning of art, in my opinion. They don't understand the purpose. They think it's just decoration or, something pretty to look at. But the truth is, the purpose of art is human connection, or interaction even. It's energy meeting energy. It's the transfer of thought, emotion, and soul from one person to another. When I stand in front of a painting, I don't just see the paint. I feel the time behind it, the practice and the patience, the struggle, and yes, also the joy, or most of the times at least. When someone shows me AI art, I don't feel any of that. It's empty, because there's nothing there. There's no process, no sweat, no laughter, tears, or anything. It's just cold output from a machine. And I'm not even going to talk about data sets that have been illegally using millions of pieces of work that never gave permission, or an artist that never gave permission to use their work. I'm not even going into the ethics part of it. This is just me ranting about art and process and people bypassing that. So yeah, stick with me on that one. But people will argue with me on this. They'll say, well, but AI is just another tool. And look, I get where that argument comes from. Photoshop is a tool. Procreate is a tool. Even a damn paintbrush is a tool. But the difference is that tools don't create art for you. They help you express your vision, and AI doesn't do that. AI replaces the artist and then steals the credit. And that's where I personally draw the line. It doesn't belong in the world of art. Let's zoom in a little closer to home, because here in the Netherlands it drives me absolutely insane that I still see so much AI generated slop being sold at conventions. People print it out, frame it, slap it on a table, and they call themselves artists. And nobody stops them. Why? And it drives me nuts, as you can obviously tell, because the thing is that there's hardly any regulations here. Even though rules technically exist, and I think the European Union is even a bit further ahead when it comes to data protection compared to the United States. But the rules per country, the rules per organization it's a giant mess. And even if there were rules, there's hardly enough interest to enforce on those rules. And it gets worse, actually, because a couple of years ago I was at a convention in Belgium, one of the bigger conventions actually, and they really leaned in to the AI like really hard. And they didn't even admit it. Their entire brand, like their logos, their promo images, everything was AI generated. And artists started calling them out for it, but their response was just denial, straight up lies. And if that wasn't insulting enough, they pulled another stunt a couple of years later. So they announced a sort of mystery guest author, and well, that sounds very mysterious, right? People bought tickets for that, and they stood in line and they waited to meet this supposedly famous writer. Except nobody had heard of them. Nobody had seen their books before, and when they finally appeared, veiled and hidden, they got autographs for a novel that, guess what, was completely written by AI. That's not just gross, that's a freaking scam. That's taking advantage of fans, of artists, of the entire community as a whole. And to me, it's proof of how dangerous this can get if we just shrug and let all this happen. Because the moment money is involved, you better believe that bad actors are going to find a way to exploit it. But let's switch gears for a moment. Because there is another side to this that I don't think gets talked about enough. What happens when someone cries wolf and says your art is AI when it's not? Every time someone walks up to my booth and asks, or worse, tells me this looks AI, a piece of my soul just dies. I wish I was exaggerating, but I don't think I am. It cuts so incredibly deep, because here I am, pouring hours, days, weeks into a piece, crafting something from scratch, and then someone looks at it for 2 seconds and assumes that I cheated. We need to educate people on how to recognize AI art versus handmade art. And yes, it's tricky, and it gets trickier all the time because AI is getting better at mimicking styles. But instead of throwing accusations around, maybe the better approach is curiosity. Ask the artists about their process. Ask them how they build their work, what brushes they use, what their workflow looks like. Most artists will just light up when you ask those questions. We love talking about the process of our work. It's part of why we do it. Sure, there will always be liars, there will always be cheaters, there will always be someone trying to pass AI off as their own, but most of us, we're just here because we love creating, and nothing hurts more than being lumped in with people who don't. So how do we fix this? What could conventions actually do to enforce anti-AI rules? First off, they need clear policies. No AI art should be visible, a non-negotiable line in their vendor guidelines. It shouldn't be hidden in the fine print. It should be there, loud and clear. And secondly, I think there should be some form of jury process. A lot of events already have jury applications to prevent people from selling mass-produced goods or bootlegs. Extend that to AI. Ask artists to submit their work in progress shots with their applications. If you can show the messy sketch or the color blocking, the progress layers, it proves it's yours. And sure, there is also AI now that sort of mimics the art creation, but it's so obvious to tell when a video shows you like moving brushes instead of what AI does when like the flashes are sort of momentary recordings that just don't make sense at all. And I think in general that's the vibe you get with AI, is just that it doesn't make any sense at all. But it's obvious. You can tell when something is real. So ask an artist to apply their process videos along with that. And I do understand that it's more work for an artist to get through an application, and I also understand that it's more work for organizations because they have to go through all that material. I think that if we care about protecting the integrity of events or the integrity of our art, that time is worth it. Because right now, artists are the ones doing all the fighting and all the educating and all the explaining. And that is not a sustainable way of doing things. It's a very wonky system, and I think that even with these two steps, you know what? You could even hand out badges for authors or artists that pass the selection process, that pass the jury. Hand out badges that says handmade, no AI, and have them hang that up on their booth. And because that would not be a punishment, it would be a badge to build trust with customers. Because conventions are really dependent on these three parties: the organization itself, the artist carrying that event, and of course the people who come in to be entertained and to potentially buy art. So when you create a bond between these three parties, I think that's how we can start mending this problem, how we can start mending this wound. thing is that none of this is actually entirely new. Before AI, we were already fighting battles. Bootleg artists and dropshippers, people reselling stolen prints off of AliExpress. We've been here before. The battlefield simply changed. And that's important to remember because it means that we already have some tools and strategies in place that we can reuse. We already know how to spot fraud. We already know how to call it out. This isn't a brand new problem. It's just bigger and faster, and it's a scarier version of the old one. So yeah, let's keep talking about this. We need to keep this conversation going. AI might be here to stay, but that doesn't mean it gets to take over our art. It doesn't mean that it gets to erase years of training and practice and passion. If you're an artist, stand your ground. If you're a customer, support real creators. If you're an event organizer, please step up. Because without rules and enforcement, we all lose. Thank you very much for sticking around with me through this rant/lecture/pep talk with this current voice that I'm you get my point. If you found this video helpful, please give the video a like and maybe subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to check out my Patreon if you want more behind the scenes content and exclusive art merch. At the end of the day, art isn't about pretty pictures. It's about human connection, and that's something no machine will ever replace. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.